What's up, YouTube? I'm here to do my prediction video for UFC 262. Let's start the ball. The first fight is Cristiano Gallegos versus Shane Soriano. And to me, Shane looks like he's okay at striking. He was in the UFC before. He was 0-3. And the simple fact is, he's not great when it comes to fighting off really good wrestlers and their submission attempts. And I think Cristiano Gallegos, is good at both. He's not the greatest submission guy ever, but he has good enough wrestling to where he can continuously take Shane down over and over again and eventually just win by rear naked choke. So I'm leaning towards Gallegos. I think his wrestling and submission offense are just going to be too much for Shane. And I mean, I think the same thing's going to just happen over and over again where he just gets taken down and eventually gets submitted with a rear naked choke. Next is Kevin Aguilar versus Tucker Lutz. And to me, this depends entirely on Kevin Aguilar. If he fights like how he normally fights, he should win this fight all day. I feel like his last fight or two, he hasn't been fighting the way he used to. I don't know if he was taking his weight management as seriously, because I think one of those fights was at lightweight, and he's too small to fight at lightweight. If he's in great shape, Kevin Aguilar can beat a lot of guys at featherweight. I feel like he's a real legit guy at featherweight if he's in great shape. Because his whole style is just move forward, throw high volume, and solid combos. So, to me, Lutz fights kind of similar. He just shoots for a lot of takedowns. I think Kevin Aguilar's takedown defense is good enough to stop that. Like I said, as long as Kevin Aguilar comes in great shape, he wins this fight. So I'm hope that happens. I'm leaning towards Aguilar. I think he wins by decision. Next is Gina Manzi versus Priscilla. I can't say her last name. To me, these two are both strikers with some top game. I just think Gina's a little bit better at both. I think Gina's got a little bit more punching power, and I think she's a little bit better with her offensive grappling and mixing it together. She trains with, the James Krause guys and Tim Elliott, and her last fight really showed me that she's really good at mixing up striking on the feet and taking it to the ground, beating people up there. And Priscilla, she's decent in both areas herself, but I just think Gina's better at both, and I think she's going to win either a clear-cut decision or a late TKO from ground and pound. Next we got Jordan Wright versus Jamie Pickett, and these guys are both so weird because it's like they're both good strikers, but they kind of, I don't know. I feel like neither one of them is super amazing, and I wouldn't be shocked if either guy wins this fight. I think this fight is going to be entirely a straight kickboxing fight. I'm leaning ever so slightly towards Pickett. I think he has a slight speed and overall athleticism advantage. I think that, they're both good strikers. Like I said, they both hit fairly hard, but like I said, I think the little things are going to be the difference. I think, like I said, Jamie having the slight speed advantage and overall athleticism advantage is going to give him the advantage overall. And I think he's going to eventually catch Jordan and win by knockout or TKO in the first or second round. Next is Adriana Lee versus Antonia Shevchenko, and to me, this fight is going to be like Adriana Lee's last three fights. It's going to be a really close fight on the feet and on the ground. They're going to mix it up everywhere, but I think Antonia is going to win ever so slightly. Adriana Lee, she's coming off of 3 straight split decision losses, and every single fight was super close. Every single fight was a fight that you could argue that she won. I thought she did lose all 3 of them, but like I said, it doesn't change the fact that they were close. If you argued that Lee won it, I think there's a fair argument for her winning those fights too. And I think this fight's going to be the same. I think by the end, it's going to be one of those fights where it's it could go either way, but I'm leaning ever slightly towards Antonia. I think her striking's a little bit better, and I think her grappling's a little bit better, too. I mean, Lee's probably got the better overall submission game, but I think Antonia's just the stronger fighter overall, and that'll help her get top position a little bit more, and just slightly edge the rounds out in her favor. So I think Antonia Shevchenko's going to win a close split decision. Next is Lando Vannata versus Mike Grundy, and this is the thing. Mike Grundy has shown repeatedly that if he can't finish guys in the first round, he tends to fade really hard. And I think that that's what's going to happen in this fight. I think that Vannata's only been finished one time against Tony, and that was when he was getting super tired. And he took that fight in 5 days' notice. Every other fight he's ever been in, he can keep kind of, even though he slows down too, he can keep a relatively high pace even when he's tired. That's the thing with Vannata, is he gets tired, but he never gets so gassed that he can't throw out a decent amount of offense. I also feel like we've never really seen him. I know he hasn't fought a ton of grapplers, but anytime he gets taken to the ground, I feel like he's able to get back to his feet fairly quickly. I know Mike Grundy's the best wrestler he's ever fought. And I wouldn't be shocked if Grundy can catch him in a submission early, but I'm just leaning towards Vannata. I think that Grundy wins the first round, like how he wins most of his fights, and then I think Vannata just picks him apart the next 2. And wins a solid 29-20 decision. like I said, other than Grundy getting him down and submitting him in the first round, I think Vannata can easily outpoint him for 2 rounds after Grundy starts to slow down. So, yeah, I think that's a more likely scenario, so I'm leaning towards Vannata to win a 29-20 decision. Next is Jacare Souza versus Andre Munoz. And to me, they're both jiu-jitsu dudes. They both have some striking. I just think Jacare is better everywhere. I think unless Jacare is completely done, which I don't think he's completely done. I think the Kevin Holland fight, he was looking really good. He just got caught with a big shot. And, you know, you can see his takedown game and his grappling game are still there. And I mean, his striking is probably still there too. Like I said, I think he just got caught in his last fight. And, like, you look at the fights before that, they were close decision losses that were competitive. It's not like even though he's on a 3-fight losing streak, it's not like he's getting blown out of the water. I feel like every fight he's had has been competitive. He has just lost them. And I think that, you know, this is good. Take a little step down in competition to get a win so he can fight someone better next. And, like I said, other than him getting caught with a big shot, I think he's just the better striker and the grappler in this fight. So I lean towards Jacare to get this to the ground, beat up Andre a little bit, and then eventually submit him with like an arm triangle or rear naked choke, or maybe just finish him with ground and pound. But either way, I'm leaning towards Jacare. Next is Matt Schnell versus Rodrigo Bontorin, and Bontorin missed weight by like 1 pound, but this fight was super short notice for him, so I don't mind that much. You know what I mean? If you're taking the fight on like 2 weeks' notice, then I understand. It's hard to cut that weight in that short of time. I think Schnell is still the better overall fighter in this fight. I think Bontorin, you know, is definitely the better overall jiu-jitsu grappler guy, but I think Schnell has the better conditioning and the better overall striking, and his jiu-jitsu is good enough to where I think he can survive on the ground with Bontorin. And even if he does get taken down, I think he'll just survive whatever submission attempts, eventually work his way back up to the feet, and then just outpoint Bontorin for the rest of the fight. I don't know if he finishes Bontorin, but I do think he wins at least 2 of the 3 rounds, so I'm leaning towards Schnell to just kind of pick him apart, especially after the first. Like, Bontorin might win the first, but I think Schnell's going to win the next 2, kind of like the Vannata Grundy fight. And yeah, I think Schnell wins at least a 29-20 decision. Next is Shane Burgos versus Edson Barboza, and this fight is super close and it's super fun. I think these guys are just going to be going at it the whole fight. It's so tough because I think that this fight's going to be a lot like the Josh Emmett fight, where it kind of depends who does more damage early. Because that's what I thought in the Emmett fight. I thought like whoever starts landing the huge shots early was probably going to do better later, and it was Emmett. And I think the same thing in this fight. I think the biggest thing is I think Barboza has a speed advantage. So I think that when these guys are trading, I think Barboza is going to be landing the bigger shots early. I don't know if he finishes Burgos like he could. Burgos, you know, can take a hell of a shot. Like, I know he got finished in the Kattar fight, but that was after 2 insane rounds of them just going at it, and then Kattar was catching with a big shot in the third. And then the Emmett fight, they were just both tagging each other with huge shots, and Emmett was just tagging him way more often. I think this fight's going to be similar. I think these guys are just going to be going at it, but I think Barboza's just going to do more damage early, especially with like leg kicks and stuff like that. And that's going to pay dividends later in the fight. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Burgos can do a late 3rd round rally because he has that ability, but I just see this fight being really back and forth the entire time. I think Burgos might win 1 round, but I think Barboza wins at least 2 of the 3, and I think the early damage I think he's most likely going to do is going to pay a lot of effect later, so I think Barboza is going to win the decision or maybe get a late TKO. But I do think this fight's going to be competitive the whole way through. Next is Katlyn Chookagian versus Viviane Araujo, and this is just the honest truth. I don't think Katlyn loses to most people outside of, like, I'm talking pound for pound. The top, like, whoever's ranked above her right now in the pound for pound, because I think Katlyn's ranked, like, 8 or 9. Those are the only people I really see beating her. I think she's just too good on her feet and too good on the ground for most people to beat her. I think that her volume's too good for Vivi, and I think, in all honesty, unless Vivi's on top of her, on the ground, I think Katlyn can control most people any day of the week. She's a good black belt, so is Araujo, but we've seen, when Katlyn gets on top of people, she just lights them up. I think that, like I said, there's only a handful of people that are better than Katlyn, and I think we're going to see that this weekend. I think she's going to outpoint Vivi on the feet, and I won't be surprised if she takes her down and beats her up on the ground, too, because, like I said, she's the bigger chick. I think she has the stronger top game, and I think she wins by either decision or TKO, so I'm leaning towards Katlyn. Next, we got Tony Ferguson versus Beneil Dariush, and I think this fight's gonna be just like the Oliveira fight. I think that Tony might be done. Like, I don't want to say that, but it's just true. That Oliveira fight was horrible. Like, he got taken down so easily and controlled so easily. To me, it was a little ridiculous. Like, he's never looked like that before. Like, people have never been able to take him down like that and control him. And I don't know if he was injured going into that fight, but I'm just saying, I have to base this decision based on their last fights. And to me, Beneil showed that he can strike and grapple at a high level. I think he's slowly been getting better every fight. I think he's kind of starting to go on that run that Tony was, where he's just picking off these great fighters one after another. And I think Tony's next. I think Tony didn't look good at all in his last fight. I think he didn't do anything on the ground. I think Beneil is going to do the same thing. I think they're going to strike a little on the feet. Beneil's going to take him down, control him, beat him up, and win by a dominant decision. Next is Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. This is my thing. I think the biggest thing is that Chandler has too big of a speed advantage early for Oliveira. I don't think Oliveira's going to be able to get him to the ground like he did Tony. And I think if they're to straight kickboxing, I still don't think Oliveira's the greatest striker ever. He's gotten better, but I still think he's just not amazing at striking. He's good, but I mean, the Kevin Lee fight's a great example. He was still getting hit quite a bit in that fight. And this is the thing. I think Chandler early is just too fast. I think that he's going to be able to do what he kind of did to Dan Hooker. I think he'll eventually find that huge shot and I think just knock out Oliveira. I just feel like that first round KO is the most likely scenario in this fight. I mean, the longer it goes, the more Oliveira will probably have a chance to catch Chandler. But this is the thing. Chandler's grappled with great grapplers before, like Kyoji Horiguchi. Or not Horiguchi, but uh, you know who I'm talking about, the guy from Bellator. And I mean, he's never been close to getting submitted ever, I don't think. And he's fought tons of good jiu-jitsu guys. I just think the wrestling and the power advantage are too much in his favor. And neither guy have amazing gas tanks. And like I said, I just feel like the first round KO is the most likely scenario, and that's what I'm going with. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.